What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fight to Thrive podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tyler, and today we are going to be talking about fasting and discussing some different benefits of it, kind of how I like to go about it, how I recommend a lot of my clients go about fasting, and some reasons that you might want to actually avoid fasting, especially for very long periods, and what that looks like. Based on some of the lab tests that I've seen in people that maybe have some different types of imbalances relating to stress and cortisol and things like that. So just to start out with some of the main benefits from the physical side, this stuff gets really kind of deep and nerdy, and so I'm not going to dive too far into all the science around it. I'm just going to kind of give a big picture overview. But the main thing that we see early on is that we see blood sugar and insulin levels start to stabilize and lower, versus if we're eating all day and we're constantly getting a lot of, even if they're small blood sugar spikes, that changes how our body is producing insulin over time. And so if we can create fasting periods, even as little as 4 hours, and that's why I'm not a big proponent of snacking, because if we can break our meals up to at least 3.5, 4 hours of time in between meals, we start to see insulin levels stabilize and lower down over time. And it allows some energy conservation because it gives our digestive system a break. And after that 4 hour period, when insulin is dropping, the digestive system continues to relax more and more until when we get to about a 12-hour fast, the digestive system is completely at ease and relaxed and conserving a lot of energy at that point. The other really important part about fasting, which you've probably heard about, is this idea of cellular autophagy. And this is basically the body's way of, like, quote unquote, taking out the trash. It cleans up some waste products that are already within cells, and actually will even eliminate full cells that are defective and that aren't basically operating properly. And some of those defective cells are what end up developing into specific types of diseases such as cancer. And so this can be a really powerful practice in order to help prevent some of these, preventable diseases. And this is a lifestyle factor that we can add in as, some of this kind of preventative component. And so this autophagy process, kind of this taking out the trash, it starts to mostly happen after a full 24 hours of fasting is when it really kicks into gear. We do see it a little bit sooner than that, but as far as like really, again, kicking into gear, that full day is what we want to see. And that's why I recommend for a lot of my clients to incorporate, and I'll get into more details about this later, to incorporate at least one day per week where you are getting a 20 to a 24 hour kind of a full day fast to really get some of these autophagy type of benefits. Another aspect that's really great about fasting is that, so let's say we do incorporate this full day fast. So once we get to about this 20 to 24 hour period, our body no longer has the stored form of carbohydrates, at least at the level where it's able to use it rapidly for energy. And that stored form of carbohydrate is called glycogen, and it's stored in our muscles and in our liver. And so when we're kind of depleted of that glycogen store for our body to use as energy, the only other place we have to go for energy is our fat storage. And so our body gets really good, especially if we do this regularly, our body becomes what's called metabolically flexible. And so it can start getting energy from our actual fat storage. And it does that by breaking down the fat molecules, breaking them down into their individual components in order to utilize the ketones that are available from that fat storage. And our body and our brain can use those ketones for energy. And again, this happens at about the full day of fasting. And so that's why, again, I do recommend at times to incorporate kind of a longer fast. And so the more that we do this, the better the body gets at this process. And again, this process being metabolic flexibility, where meaning that it's able to utilize carbohydrates or the stored form of carbohydrates for energy well when it needs to. But when that energy storage is not available, or we haven't eaten recently, it gets really good if it's accustomed to it to, again, use that fat storage in order to get the energy that it needs. And now if we start looking at some of the longer fasts, like getting into 2 or 3 days, once we get to about that 36-hour mark, we've seen up to a 300 times of an increase in human growth hormone production. And this is, a lot of people think about this as far as, some athlete or something or someone who's taking steroids and their head's getting really big or taking human growth hormone and trying to just get really, bulky and muscular. But that's not the case, and we're not talking about taking human growth hormone artificially in this case. We're talking about ramping up its natural production of it, the body's natural production of it through fasting. And so when we're able to do this, the human growth hormone assists in cellular regeneration. It helps to improve strength, energy, skin, nail, and hair health, all of these things that are really important for wanting to stay youthful, stay energetic, stay young, stay looking good, feeling good. And so, fasting is a great kind of hack that we can use in order to keep this human growth hormone ramped up and help us stay on track towards improving upon the health outcomes that we're working towards and getting us closer to the goals that we have. And so then the question becomes, all right, how do I do this? Like, how can I actually incorporate fasting into my life? And I approach this from a multifaceted lens. I think that at least tapping into a lot of these benefits, or at least some of these benefits on a daily basis, is really important. And I already kind of spoke to that before, this idea of not eating for at least 3.5 hours in between meals and trying to avoid snacking. I think that's really important. I think in order to do that, in order to, feel full enough, in order to allow yourself to have those gaps, I think it's important to incorporate a lot of protein in each meal. I'd say for most people, 30 to 40 grams, 3 meals a day. And that's going to vary a lot depending on the individual. But if you're able to get a good amount of protein, you're going to feel full. You're not going to feel the need to keep snacking and keep, ramping up the blood sugar levels and not allowing the blood sugar to calm down between meals and again, tapping into some of those fasting benefits. From a day-to-day basis, it's going to vary depending on the individual and kind of what you have going on. But typically, I recommend at least a 12 to 14 hour fast overnight. So let's say you stop dinner at 7 p.m., not eating again until at least 7 a.m. the next day. For myself, I try to usually go a little bit closer to that 14-hour period around 9 a.m. And some people like to go a full 16 hours, and I don't always recommend that. And I'll talk about why in a little bit, but some people that works well as going that full 16 hours. But typically the sweet spot is around a 12 to a 14-hour window there. As far as now some of the longer fasts, I usually like to incorporate, and I already spoke to this, 1 day of at least a 20-hour fast, and tapping into those benefits such as the cellular autophagy, again, the taking out the trash process, at least 1 day a week. And also it can be a really nice reset, not just from like a weight management standpoint, but an inflammation level. Like if you've had a weekend, we had a couple big cheat meals, maybe a couple of alcoholic drinks. It can be like a Monday, for example. It can be a really nice time to get that full day fast in and help just kind of the body clean out through the autophagy process, clean out all those waste products, help reduce inflammation, and just get you feeling better quicker. In the recovery process is a little bit quicker, sometimes on a Monday or whatever day works best for your schedule. It can be a really good reset and helps, again, stabilize the blood sugar levels, reduce insulin, and help get you going towards that goal you have, whether that's from a weight management side or you're wanting to stabilize your energy levels, improve your immune system. So many great benefits here that we're starting to tap into. So now that's from a daily basis, a weekly basis. Now let's look at it from a quarterly basis, because I said before, once we get into that 36 hours of fasting period, we really start to tap into some incredible benefits from the perspective of human growth hormone production, which is also, it's a little bit of a different topic, but it's also ramped up when we're sleeping well. And one thing that's really interesting is every time I get into one of these longer fasts, my sleep quality goes through the roof, because I track my sleep quality, the amount of deep sleep I'm getting, the amount of REM sleep, how many times I woke up through the night. When I engage on my quarterly longer fasts, my sleep quality is incredible. And I think that, might be a factor as to why the human growth hormone production ramps up so much as well. And so what I do and what a lot of my clients do in my practice is they utilize a functional medicine detox protocol. And we use the 7-day protocol. So in days 1 through 3, basically you are fasting. So day 1, you only have these shakes and supplements to help support your liver, to help support the detoxification process, to take the toxins that are accumulating in our body through so many different things, such as our food, water, cosmetics, beauty supplies, shampoos. The list goes on and on. There's so many different toxins that can build up, and it can be a little bit overwhelming for our liver to basically eliminate these toxins from our body effectively. And so what happens is they start to get stored in our body, in our fat cells, because they never make the full conversion from becoming fat soluble toxins to water soluble toxins, because the liver is just overburdened at this point. And so what's beautiful about the detox is, okay, now we're tapping into these fasts by utilizing only the supplements in day 1 and day 2. So that's helping to eliminate body fat storage through some of the processes we talked about earlier. And that is also releasing some of these toxins, so they're not being stored in our fat cells anymore. But we need to support the liver through these supplements to help them take these toxins from fat soluble to water soluble, so they could be eliminated, through our sweat, feces, urine, things like that. And so it's really a beautiful reset, and we're actually getting ready in my practice to start one as a group next week, and I'm really excited for it. I feel like, the summer is just ending, and I'm ready to kind of get into the fall and get this detoxification process started. And so getting back to the protocol, days 1, day 2, we're taking the supplements, the shake supplements 4 times a day, just 1 scoop, and that allows us to maintain this fasted state. And then day 3 is at lunchtime, is when we introduce food again, but it's only specific types of food, mostly vegetables, some small amount of like low glycemic index berries and lean proteins. And so days 3 through 7, we're hitting those. But so those first 2.5 days essentially is in a fasted state. And it's not just the benefits that we see from this, again, are not just related to weight loss. If that's a main goal for you, then this is a great thing to do regularly. And like I said, we do this once a quarter just to kind of get all the benefits from this. I think sometimes if you do it more than this, it ends up being potentially detrimental to your metabolism. And because you don't want to, in my opinion, fast for too long, especially if you carry a good amount of muscle, or even if you don't carry a good amount of muscle, it's really good to maintain that muscle for your metabolism. And sometimes if we fast for too long and we're not weight training, we're not exercising, that muscle can start to pare down. And so that's why we want to it can be a careful balance to find with all this fasting and making sure that you're, again, getting enough protein in and getting enough stimulus for the muscles, because I want to set you up for success in the long term as well. It's not just the short-term benefits of the fasting, but we also want to be able to maintain muscle mass, maintain our energy levels, and maintain our metabolism in the future as well. And so another part of this that isn't as widely talked about is the relation of cortisol to fasting. And with cortisol, we see it spike up with fasting, in particular when stress levels are high. And so let's say you've been fasting overnight, you're going for that 16-hour fast, let's say. So you get up at 7, you had ate dinner the night before at 7, and so it's been a 12-hour fast, but you have a lot to do in the morning. You gotta get ready, you gotta, run the kids to school maybe, prepare their breakfast, go to work, you're shooting off emails, you're getting your workout in, you got a lot going on. Well, when we don't have glucose from food or amino acids readily available for energy, what our body is going to do is it is going to increase cortisol production in order to signal to the liver that we need some of that stored form of energy, which is glycogen. We need to tap into those energy stores. And so what happens is that cortisol will increase in response to stress while we're in the fasted state, which if we have any issues so I'm working with a lot of people and looking at their labs, right? And seeing what their sex hormones are, what their cortisol levels are at, or where their cortisol levels are at. And a lot of people are coming to me in a state of high stress. They've been stressed out for a while, and that's a combination of physical stress, mental, emotional. And physical, I mean, the type of people who are coming to me, really high performing type people, and they like to push themselves. They like to continue to, go. And so cortisol is ramped up for a long time, because they're maybe doing CrossFit workouts that are really hard, and they're going to like a high stress type of lifestyle. And so a lot of the results that I'm seeing back now are cortisol levels that are actually depleted because the HPA axis, or to simplify it, just the adrenal glands are fatigued. They're starting to burn out and they're not producing cortisol at the levels that they should be. So in that case in particular, we're trying to build up those people, like the adrenal systems, the HPA axis for those people. And so I don't want to have a big ramp in cortisol. So if you have a stressful morning, I want to cut that fast off around the 12 to 14 hour mark. Again, we're starting to get into a lot of good benefits around that 12-hour mark. And so at least you've tapped into that for that day. But I'm probably not going to want to be going much longer than that. And I'm probably not going to be wanting to do, at least off the bat, those weekly longer fasts. I'm good with doing the detox once a quarter because there are so many other great benefits to it. And usually I'm talking to my clients at that time, okay, during the fasting days of this detox, I need you to create a schedule so that your stress is really low on those days, because you're probably, your energy levels aren't going to be super high. You're not eating anything. And if you're really stressed and like cortisol is going up, again, that signals the body, okay, we need energy, goes into the liver, releases glycogen, and that glycogen is broken down into individual glucose molecules, which can actually increase our blood sugar and throw us out of the fast anyways. And so we need to be very intentional about how we're going about the fasting process as well during this time. And so the key is we need to know what's going on with your body in order to optimize your fasting protocol and get you into a place where you're tapping into all these benefits. Again, the metabolic flexibility, the autophagy process, the improved human growth hormone, the stabilized insulin and blood sugar levels. All these things are great, but we need to make sure that we're going about it in a way that's healthy and optimized for you and your body. And so, again, I really love all of this science that's coming out to support fasting, something that I've been doing for a while and has become an important part of my health and my life. And there is so much information out there about it and people going about it in so many different ways where I think it can be confusing and overwhelming. So my goal for today's podcast was to hopefully simplify it for you a little bit and to make it clear that there is not necessarily one perfect way to do it, and that we need to, again, figure out what's right for you. And so if you have any questions about that, please reach out to me on Instagram at Dr. Tyler Simmet. And thank you for listening.